Good morning, Mark Clifford.
Good morning, Mick. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Your story is remarkable because of the ups and downs that you faced on that day. I mean, plummeting the depths from the highs of relief. 20 years ago tomorrow, on Tuesday, September 11th, 2001, you were in Dublin. You were attending the funeral of a friend. You're from Cork, of course. You'd driven to the capital for the day, and you were at a reception following the funeral when you caught sight of a TV screen, and you thought it was a movie. Can you take it from there?
Yeah. From that point on, I just thought straight away that I had been talking to my brother Ron the night before, and I knew he was at that site. He was in the World Trade Center. I immediately tried to make contact with him. Just literally took out my phone and started phoning him. I couldn't get through to him, and I decided just to start heading home immediately. So I went to the car park in where I was parked in St. Stephen's Green, and by the time I got to the car, I had actually made contact with Ron. So Ron told me that he had been involved in the most incredible incident, and he was making his way home back to New Jersey.
What was he in the building, Mark?
Ron was in the building. So Ron was getting ready for a meeting. He was just in the lobby. He heard an explosion outside on the street. And at that point, he turned around and he saw somebody out in the street in distress. He went right back out the revolving doors that he came in earlier on. And he pulled this lady who literally was on fire. If you know about it, basically the fuel from the plane that had crashed above him had spread fire and devastation on most of the street around the World Trade Center.
Wow! So already immediately after the impact, there were people in bad distress on the ground, even.
Absolutely, there was a lot of plane debris had fallen to the ground. A lot of plane debris, and the building at that point was on fire. This lady her name was Julianna, and he pulled Julianna into the building, and he managed to pull a tablecloth from one of the restaurants on the bottom floor and cover her. Such were her injuries. So literally her entire hair had melted into her head. So quite ironically, so while he was screaming for people to help him and to give Julianna first aid, about probably 10 minutes into that point, a first aider did arrive, and they both worked on Julianna at that particular time.
What was the outcome for Julianna?
Julianna died about 2 weeks later from her injuries.
Wow.
In another twist is that her parents and her family were deeply grateful for Ron for getting Julianna out of the building. So while they were treating Julianna, Ruth's plane hit the tower. Ron wasn't to notice. And so the paramedics said to Ron, let's get the hell out of here. So they tried to make for the door, and such were Julianna's injuries that when people looked back and they were shouting, make way, and people looked back in awe and cleared a path for Ron and the medics to exit the building.
Wow. And of course, you mentioned, Ruth, this is the most ironic twist of fate and tragic twist of fate, because you're on your way home now and you're flushed with the relief that Ron is talking to you. He's safe. He's on his way home to New Jersey. He's had a traumatic day. He's come to the aid of somebody that he hoped would survive. So you're still driving and you're making your way to be with your family in Cork. And then you received a call.
And then the biggest problem that Ireland had with the United States at that point is that landlines seemingly went down or were shut down, and I had perfect connection to ringing Ruth's husband David and Ron. So I was able to relay messages back into Cork to my other brother John. Subsequently rang David, and David said he was worried about Ruth because Paige, Ruth's godmother, Ruth and Julianna were dropped off at Logan that morning to fly to LAX.
Logan being the Boston main airport.
Yeah, Boston Airport. And he was worried that they were mid-flight or in-flight. We then sent a family member down to Logan Airport in Boston just to hang out there to see was information being given out. And I also contacted contacts that I would have had in the Boston Globe, and they sent somebody down there straight away to have to see could they get information from us as well.
I remember very well that day trying to get through to friends in America. I remember going for a beer that evening on the way home and trying on behalf of somebody else, a nurse who was in the pub, absolutely distraught. She could not contact a family member. And after 5 or 6, maybe 7 tries, the phone rang on the other end. I just passed it to her. And you could see that she'd almost collapsed with relief. I was just lucky to get through, I imagine. You weren't so lucky with the information that came back your way.
No. So the information was that Ruth was on the plane. I had tried to contact Ruth the night before and I left a message in her answering machine, but I presumed that she was on vacation. And then it just, the whole thing manifested that Julianna was with her and Paige was with her, and they both were in separate planes that took off 15 minutes apart and ended up in the 9/11 attack. So that was very hard to digest, and I had to stop the car several times on the way and just to take this deep breath. It was very surreal, the whole day. Yeah.
Okay, that's a very, very personal. You weren't even home at that stage. You still had to continue your journey home.
So I immediately made my way to my brother's family and just to be with them and really. But we were thinking that we had Ron safe. We were still unsure. You know, could Ruth have been in another plane? Could have whatever. But by the time I've reached Cork, Ruth had been confirmed that she and Julianna had been on the plane.
Have you ever come to terms with the fact that one family member was in and had the lucky escape, and then from Boston?
It's crazy. 2 people setting off that day, and it was a beautiful day. Two different things that could end up in one of the memorable changing of the world's politics, and
that 2 could be involved in the same incident. One from Boston, arriving at the place where the other was working, and of course the loss of a child's life as well. The Clifford family are all from Cork. Of course, you're just one of
Cork. Yeah, Ruth was born in Cork, and she lived in New London in Connecticut. She lived and worked in Boston, where she was quite a successful businesswoman with her own beauty spas. And when her husband David got ill there, she literally packed in her work and concentrated on getting David well. That was just before 9/11, and where she lived in New London. But she always maintained an Irish identity. She wanted Julianna to have an Irish identity. She definitely made regular trips to Ireland, and we made regular trips over to Ruth to spend holiday time with her and quality time with her.
Mm-hmm. Ruth was 44. Her daughter Julianna was just 4. And I'm looking at a picture of them here, and they're smiling, 2 gorgeous human beings taken so tragically. 20 years ago tomorrow, I know Joe Biden is going to be, President Joe Biden is going to be at the commemoration ceremony there. He'll then go on to, is it Shanksville or Shank, where the second plane, and then he'll go to the third plane, and then he'll go to the Pentagon to lay a wreath there. How will your family meet or commemorate and remember tomorrow?
Yeah. We got Ruth's body back about 9 months after the 9/11 attack. We got a phone call from the FBI, and they said they were willing to release Ruth's body, and so we said, we would love to have her in Cork, back where her roots are. And about 18 months later, then they had Julianna found, and we were able to put the two of them together. So they're side by side, and David, Ruth's husband, died about 8 years ago. So all three in that little family unit are interred in the St. Finbarr Cemetery on Glasheen Road in Cork, and it's known locally as the 9/11 grave, and they get as many visitors as Tomas McCartan and the Republican heroes who are in that graveyard as well.
Because it's a family, and you know, and almost an entire family taken so needlessly. Of course, her husband's death followed. When you say found Julianna, do you mean identified DNA wise?
They found. They identified Julianna, and they had remains for us to bury. Yeah, so to cremate.
Only four, Mark. Can you tell me a little about her?
She was first of all, she arrived very late in Ruth's life. Ruth was 40 when she had Julianna. Everything was right about Julianna. She was graceful. She was a smiley little child. She was the apple of Ruth's eye. The two of them together, it just lit up the room while they were there. Julianna had a little princess existence, and she was a princess in Ruth's world. She had a little princess, miniature-sized bathroom in the house. She had her own bedroom en suite. Everything and anything was done for Julianna. She was a beautiful little child. Yeah.
Mm. And when you look at the loss of life that's ensued in the last 20 years and the occupation of Afghanistan and the very messy withdrawal from there now as well, that was all precluded by this terrorist attack. But to date, not many of the suspected terrorists have had their day in court. Does that make you angry?
That makes me. I'm quite annoyed by that fact that America has a First Amendment, and one of the rights that American citizens have, the First Amendment, is a right to a speedy trial. There doesn't seem to be any stomach in any, and there's been several administrations in America since the 9/11 attack for bringing this whole case further. They have. One of the main perpetrators in Guantanamo Bay, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, who was educated in the United States, a devout Muslim, but that's nothing to do, but a very, very strange person. He was the person who also held the head of McWhirter. He was a New York Times reporter. In one of these awful Al-Qaeda videos that they were showing at the time, and around the 2001, where they were executing people at will. So Khalid is in there. He is quite an educated person and one of the main designers of the 9/11 attack, and hasn't been dealt with to this date. Yeah. Mm.
I remember reading a Tom Clancy book in which, fictionally, he crashed a 747 into the Capitol building in his series of books in which his agent became the President of the United States. And I was thinking to myself, it's a very far-fetched idea, but imagine if somebody got hold of that idea and used it, and lo and behold, not 3 or 4 years later, biggest missile in the world, easily taken. It did, of course, have as did the Titanic disaster, have implications for safety that were then implemented, and those doors now cannot be breached again into the cockpit, and that kind of thing. In the 20 years that have passed, has it become any easier for you? Is the void still there?
Not really, it's still very surreal. It's incredible. It's almost like being caught in the middle of an Ian Fleming novel, like an arch-villain was able to perpetrate such an incredible horror on the world, and that's kind of where my mind state was on that day. But we love Ruth, and we love, on Saturday we'll celebrate Ruth's life, and we'll celebrate Julianna's life, short life, and we'll celebrate Julianna's godmother's life, Paige. as well. And so I'm the custodian of a lot of Ruth's personal photographs, and so some that my family mightn't have seen yet or whatever, I'm going to take out and make a montage of Ruth's life in photographs on her visits to Ireland and our visits to the United States.
So something new for the family to view tomorrow, even in a poignant sense.
Yes, yeah.
It will maintain the connection, I imagine. Mark, thank you so much. You're from Passage West in Cork. You've had such a deep and personal loss. You've had the relief of your brother.
Great support with friends and people from Cork, who are absolutely fabulous to us and have been throughout the years. Yeah.
Okay. And as well as Paige, of course, we wish you the best in remembering Ruth and little Julianna tomorrow, the 20th anniversary of 9/11. Thank you, Mark.
Okay.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Mick.
Neil Prendeville, the voice of Cork. Weekdays 9 to 12. Cork's Red FM. Red FM.